We all feel like we're in our own bodies, like there is a me, an I to be grasped, separate from everything we consider outside of ourselves. Our society, rules, and everything we know is based on the premise of an individual, even our languages. But what if that feeling of separation is something your mind is constantly building from the blocks you've had given to you since you were a child, and reinforced by the structure of our civilization, and you've just never questioned it? Underneath all the categories and labels, before our thinking mind and conditioning, is a reality many of us will never know. A reality that is one seamless thing, where everything is one undefined, ageless, ever-present reality. That understanding is what's called non-duality, something that seems to be unexplainable in words and has to be realized through meditation and letting go of the concept of a self. At first glance, it can sound like obscure philosophy, but non-duality is found in ancient traditions, modern psychology, and even science. There are many practitioners who have come to know non-duality, and it is with their help we will attempt to understand this ancient, ever-present oneness, and maybe forever change the way we know the world and ourselves. We usually assume that the mind and the body are separate, a duality. So a oneness of body and mind is its lack of separateness, or non-duality. In another understanding, non-duality is the idea that the division between you and everything outside of you is something we assume, not something that actually exists in the way we think. Adi Shankara, an 8th century Indian philosopher, taught that only the ultimate reality, Brahman, truly exists. The separate self is more like a mistaken identity. Brahman, in Advaita Vedanta, a school of Hindu philosophy, is the origin and cause of all that exists, an ultimate, unchanging reality. Brahman is not a personal god, but a metaphysical concept representing the absolute and all-pervading essence of the universe. The sense of being a distinct separate self arises from ignorance, which creates a mistaken identity. This illusion, known as Maya, veils the true nature of reality, making the world and individual ego appear real. The goal of spiritual practice in Advaita Vedanta is self-realization, direct knowledge that the Atman is Brahman, that the individual self and the universal reality are not separate but identical in essence. If we again quote Shankara, Brahman is real, the world is illusion, and the individual soul is none other than Brahman. In Buddhism, the Mahayana Zen tradition has a comparable philosophy. In the Heart Sutra, written by an unknown author, it states, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." The meaning of this is truly best understood as a realization during meditation, but put into words, it can be described this way, that everything we see and experience, including our bodies and the world around us, has no independent existence. Everything depends on other things to exist, a unity of oneness or interconnectedness. The world and everything in it are not permanent or capable of sustaining themselves. Everything is always changing, and they all rely on each other to exist. Emptiness allows things to exist and change. Without it, nothing could happen. Everything would stay fixed, unchanging for eternity. Emptiness and form are two sides of the same reality. All things are empty and part of the ultimate reality. This ultimate reality is a truth beyond ordinary perception, characterized by emptiness, non-duality, and the cessation of suffering, the true nature of existence realized through enlightenment. If the reality we touch every day, the one we smell and taste, is this seamless whole of non-duality, why does it feel divided? Why the illusion? We could talk about society and its conditioning of the concept of the individual, or the baser instincts of survival, but in the first instance, it's the mind that creates the illusion. From the moment you're born, the mind is sectioning off everything. After a few years, that sorting becomes your identity. You build a sense of self by defining what you're not. Your family also conditions this into you, with a name, a family history, rules, and expectations. The problem is, all this conditioning works consistently generation after generation. We've built an abstract existence based on the concept of I, the one, the individual. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his lectures and his book, The Power of Now. As does Rupert Spira. These teachers are masters in pointing to a realization and do their best to describe it using dualistic languages. Your you-ness, yourself, creates a constant feeling of being separate and sometimes disconnected. We become so attached to this concept of a self that once we reach adulthood, we never question it. We attach money to it, position, work, and family. Some of us even extend our self-ego onto others because the way they dress, talk, or act offends the sense of self that has been created and doesn't match its worldview. But even at the level of mind and conditioning, we're not as separate as we think. Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, the idea that beneath our individual personalities, there's a shared psychological layer we all participate in. It's mythologies and symbols shaping us, showing up in the primal layers of all of us. As we go through our process of individuation, moving out of the collective unconscious into maturity, we establish what's called a persona, a mask in ancient Greek. These are the concepts and ideas we claim as ourself and live our lives by. There's a Zen koan of a student asking his master a simple question. He asked, "Who am I?" which could also be asked as, "What am I?" or "Why am I?" His master replied to the question, "Quickly, before your mind sets in, show me your original face from before your parents were born." It's the nature of a koan not to have an answer. It's meant to be meditated on until a realization hits you. But put briefly, this koan is pointing you away from labels that define a self, an I, away from the separation of time and boundary. But once you've reached that realization, can what's left even be understood on the level of words or thought? Can it ever be described? How do you live the non-dual understanding? The non-dual understanding isn't something you just think about. It's something you experience. It's a realization that goes beyond words. What seems to be the catalyst for this realization of non-duality is the practice of meditation. You create a quiet space for yourself and breathe deeply. You watch your thoughts come and go. You notice how they rise on their own and leave on their own. You notice how the sensations in your body do the same, all while noticing you're not an active part of either the thoughts or the feelings. You're more like an observer, set back from the turmoil of the mind and body, just watching. But then you also start to feel detached from the observer. A thought seems to appear behind the busy mind and appears to ask, who is observing all of this? If you examine this thought, you can see that the observer is just another illusion of duality. At this point, first-hand experience of a realization reached only in meditation is necessary. Ramana Maharshi, the Indian sage, who attained realization of non-duality around the age of 16, rarely spoke, but when asked, he described his realization like this. Inquiring within, who is the seer? I saw the seer disappear, leaving that alone which stands forever. No thought arose to say I saw. How then could the thought arise to say I did not see? Later in his life, he also said his experience was a sudden liberation, which resulted in a state of mind which he later described as the state of mind of God. There's a practice called self-inquiry offered by Ramana Maharshi. You ask yourself, who am I? When an answer appears, you question it. Am I my name? No, that was given to you. Am I my body? No, that's constantly changing. Am I my thoughts? No, they come and go. So what are you? The non-dual understanding doesn't need to be a sudden realization. It can be found through years of slow, gradual understanding. Either way, what is finally understood changes everything you ever thought you knew about anything. When you're fully identified with your ego, everything feels personal. But when that sense of a separate me softens, things lose their power over you, allowing you to be more authentic and not seeking to placate your ego by constantly looking for validation. We can all get a taste of non-duality, even if we're living a very egotistical life. There are these moments when you're absorbed in what you're doing, when time no longer seems to exist and you feel a kind of peace. You feel settled within yourself. Drawing your bow during archery, releasing the breath, the mind goes quiet. All there is the moment, the now, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. It's known as being in the zone. Its true name is the zone of proximal development, as coined by Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. However, its modern meaning has moved away from its original intent. In those moments of being in the zone, there isn't a strong sense of me. There's just the doing. You become one with the action. The non-dual understanding points out that this isn't some special state. It's closer to how things already are, underneath the constant conditioning and mental chatter defining an I. And also, living with non-duality also has other benefits. When the boundary between you and others isn't as solid, a sort of universal compassion arises. Caring about other people stops feeling like a social obligation. Because when you know that others and yourself are essentially one, helping them is just like treating your own pain, and hurting them is just hurting yourself. Thich Nhat Hanh, founder of the Buddhist Plum Village Zen tradition, founded many movements and foundations to help others. He led rescue operations for the Vietnamese fleeing Vietnam after the fall of Saigon, organizing secret missions to deliver food, water, and medicine to refugees. He also later taught mindfulness for many years well into his 80s, all while understanding the true nature of existence. In the science of quantum physics, the act of observing something has an effect on what's being observed. In the double slit experiment, first performed in 1801 by British polymath Thomas Young, light and matter exhibit wave-particle duality, behaving as both waves and particles depending on how they are observed. But even though a duality of wave and particles is shown in the experiment, the clean separation between observer and observed gets blurry. In some perspectives on the experiment, it's interpreted that the disappearance of the interference pattern upon observation is proof that reality is a product of mind or consciousness. This interpretation, known as the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, states that consciousness causes the collapse of the wave. This blending of the observer with what's observed illustrates the idea of non-duality, showing that reality isn't something separate from us, but deeply connected to the awareness through which we experience it. In systems theory, the transdisciplinary study of groups of interrelated, interdependent components, nothing exists in isolation. Systems, be it a living organism or even the universe, gets its identity from the relationships it has with everything around it. If you take a single part out of the system, it no longer works the way it did. It loses its connection to the whole. The human body is an example. It exchanges energy and matter with the world around it. You breathe in oxygen from the plants. You eat food and give your waste to a multitude of creatures. You breathe out carbon dioxide and trees breathe it in. Even at the cellular level, your body is interacting with the outside world, responding to the external factors of life. The cells detect these changes through receptors on their membranes, which trigger internal actions to keep balance and protect the body. Non-duality aligns with our growing scientific understanding of this existence. Reality is one vast, interconnected web. Initially, a lot of people can hear this idea of non-duality and assume it means nothing matters. They think that because everything is one, then why try or put effort in when essentially none of it is real? It's a route a lot of people take, and it's why it's important to take lessons from the likes of Zen masters. Another misconception is that the ego disappears overnight. In reality, your personality doesn't vanish. The wheels of your past thoughts and preferences keep turning. Even the most enlightened of people still need to practice mindfulness and loving kindness. We are all human after all. No progress is linear. Everything takes time. Just watch your thoughts, look at the space around things that allows them to be. Leave behind the world of mental abstraction and meditate on your part in the grand tapestry. Non-duality is seeing through the illusion that you were ever separate. It's knowing that there is in fact not a you, that no thing exists on its own in isolation, and that reality is not defined by the conditioning of our society, our culture, and the expectations of others. There's a well-used Zen koan to end on here. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. On the level of the day-to-day, nothing changes, but the experience of it, the understanding of life, is like nothing you've ever known before.